Now, you're going to be here for basically 2 hours with me, an hour and a half actually. People who are with me this long become like my family, and you are like my family. If you ever see me around on shopping centers, on airports, I'm very approachable. Come on up, say hello to me. I'm very friendly. And, but you got to be like my family, then you got to think like my family. You want to think like a prosecuting attorney marshaling the evidence. So always think of an IRS agent or a Canada Revenue agent as somebody who likes to get down on all fours tracing records, like this. Now, let me give you some ideas of how they think. Here are some things that came right out of their manual. And by the way, one thing about my tax strategies program is I have everything is based on case law, regulations, rulings. It's all cited. Even the manuals that they use is cited. Here's some things that they're actually taught. Airline tickets will show any destination and any stops en route. Well, you might say, okay, well, why is that important? Let's say that Scott were to go to a convention in Hawaii, but he stops off in Las Vegas. The auditor who audits him says, I see on your airline ticket you went to Hawaii, but you stopped off in Las Vegas. How hard are you working? If anyone asks you, how hard are you working, your answer for the rest of your life will be, how hard? I work all day like a dog. Now, I'm going to test you on this again. If I'm an IRS agent or a Canada Revenue agent, and I ask you, how hard are you working? Your answer for the rest of your life will be, I work all day like a... Good. You watch. Somebody's going to forget that. Now, lodging receipts show single or double occupancy. You might wonder, why is that important? Because if you share a room with someone, you better have a good explanation, or some of those deductions end up in the tax deduction cemetery. Oh, by the way, the IRS or Canada Revenue Agency isn't the only one that might be interested in seeing your hotel receipts. Let you think about it. How do I know you didn't use your car 100% for business? I was never in your car. You have somebody who rats on you. Repair bills usually disclose automobile mileage. So let's say you change your oil in January, you change your oil in July, you put on 10,000 miles, I figure you went 20,000 miles a year. See, IRS and Canada Revenue have an advantage that we don't have, and it's called hindsight. If you incur expenses today, you don't file it on a return until next year, you don't get audited for another 2 years, that's a real advantage that they have over us, and that advantage is called hindsight. And when you're with IRS or Canada Revenue Agency a little too long, you start developing a physical characteristic like this, hindsight. I would call that hindsight. I think my artist gets carried away. All right. I want to get on to our first full tax planning section. The other section was more of an introduction to record keeping. Now I want to start our first tax planning section, and that's entertainment. My surveys show that this chapter, depending on your lifestyle, will put somewhere between, I'd say $500 to $6,000 every year for the rest of your life. Are you all interested? Okay? That'll pay for this course. Easy. And by the way, one interesting thing about tax knowledge is it's like an ever-ready battery. It keeps going and going and going year after year. It's much better than a lot of other types of knowledge, in fact, for that reason. Now, one thing, prior to 1994, you were able to write off in both U.S. and Canada 100% of your entertainment expenses. Starting in 1994, both countries had what we call a tax simplification law, which means you got nailed. Nailed, okay? And what they did was they limited entertainment to 50%. So whatever I say in this chapter, you multiply by 50%. Now, there are some exceptions where you can write off the whole thing, and I'll mention this as an exception. But if I don't say this is an exception, you'll be limited to 50%. And this is one chapter where you don't need receipts in the U.S. What I'd like you to write down, and here's what I want you to write down for you U.S. people, is no receipts are required. And all of this, by the way, is in my tax strategies program, but you don't have the notes there, so you need to write it down. No receipts are required for entertainment expenses under $75 per expense. So no receipts are required for entertainment expenses under $75 per expense. Now, why is that important? How many people here are sitting next to someone who they met at the program and they like them, they like these people, maybe you just met them when you came here? I mean, if you raise your hand, if you're sitting next to somebody that you seem to know pretty well. All right, let me pick out someone from my audience. Hi, what is your name, sir? Hi, Gary. Who'd you meet that you know here? He's not sure who she was. All right. So Gary, let's say Gary met Heather, and they have a business discussion, and Gary spends $25 on pretzels. Hopefully those are good pretzels. Does Gary have to have a receipt in the United States for those pretzels? And the answer is no, because it's entertainment and it's under $75. Now let's say that Gary gives Heather a really good marketing idea, and Heather says, you know, Gary, I'm going to make thousands off what you taught me. Let's go to that steakhouse here, and whatever you want, it's on me. And Gary says, well, gee, you know, I never met her before. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So he gets a steak, and he gets a glass of wine, and he gets a tasteful dessert and onion rings, and she gets stuck with an $85 bill. I don't know if Gary would do that to you. Would you do that to her? Yeah. I see. Don't take him out. Does Heather have to have a receipt for that $85 bill? And the answer is yes. So you do not need a receipt if it's anything entertainment and it's under how much? 75. Now, for you Canadians, Canada Revenue Agency has a simple rule. You have to have receipts for everything. There is no exception like there is in the United States. Now,